Hi guys, this is Rachel Kennison of Diamond K Folk Art, and welcome back to our next little installment on this cute little dome box that is rapidly going from just a cheesy little less than $10 box on Amazon into something that's going to be super cute and super unique to mount your embroidery on. This next little tip is just kind of a catch up on what we've been doing. So I've already carved feet for the bottom, and we've got those set in temporarily. We'll glue those in later. I've taken off the hardware. I've filled the old hardware holes, which this is kind of hilarious to me. These are, I set my my hinges in. I wanted to do a hidden hinge on this box so that it wouldn't interfere with my embroidery design that I'm going to be putting on here. But these are set in 1 inch from the outside edge, and as you can see, usually on this type of box that you're buying on Amazon or Michaels or Hobby Lobby, they're just kind of slapped together, which is fine because you know what, they're very inexpensive and you can just take that off and redo it the way that you want to do it. And so these original hinges, you can see the holes here, and then here they're nowhere close. This is about 1 inch. These here are set way over, so you know, that's something to, if you're going to get a box like this, you do want to note the placing of the hinges on the back, because then when you make your embroidery design, you know, you want to make sure you know where that hinge is if it's going to lay over your embroidery. So anyway, I have mortised those in, and then I have also added a magnetic latch. Now this is going to have a pull here on the front, but it's just going to be a basic, you know, pick it up type of a pull, but I still wanted it to stay closed. So I just drilled this area and put in some little magnets here, magnetic catch. We also did some partitions in a previous video, just some very simple partitions for my little Penhaligons bottles that I have. And then this top is, I don't know, it morphed into, I'm just thinking that, wow, look at all this wasted space and this dome and the lid. What can I do? And so now I've built in the lid. It's going to have magnetic closures here. So we're going to have pull down doors. And I had to make these compartments for the stops for my doors to hold up against. This was inspired from a certain casket of mine at Victoria and Albert Museum. It's not one of my caskets, of course. It's a favorite of mine at the Victoria and Albert that I studied a few years ago when I was there. And I could put that accession number to that casket in the comments, because off the top of my head I can't remember it. So those are going to go in there, and because I wanted my hinges really, I wanted my lid to close with basically no, why can't I even think today, basically no space here, no gap in the front or on the sides. So I really set the hinges down deep into there. And so this is just a little tip for that. And that being, when I'm going to paper the inside of this, the whole thing gets papered. So what is the purpose of the paper? Someone asked. The purpose of the paper is to protect your embroidery from the wood. There's tannins in the wood, which is, you know, where they get tannic acid, using mordants for dyeing and things, but the tannins, the acids will leach out of the wood and into your embroidery. And so what does that mean? Well, it can make your embroidery brittle. It can degrade the background fabric. It can change its colors. We see this in clothing as acid stains, kind of an all-over modeling of the fabric, like if it was folded and placed into a wooden trunk, or even just wrapped in paper that was not acid-free. So even paper itself has acids in it. So when you're picking a paper to cover your box with, you want to pick an acid-free paper. I'll just touch briefly on, because I know somebody's going to be asking me, what's the difference between buffered and unbuffered? So some acid-free papers have buffering agents in them. Depending on the ground of your embroidery, you know, it's just best to stay away from a buffered paper. Depending on what they use to buffer the paper with, buffered papers are usually fine for linens and cottons, not for silks. Linens, cottons are cellulose based, so they're plant fibers. Silk is a protein. So there's a big difference there. So just go with an acid-free, neutral pH paper. And we're just making a barrier between the wood and your embroidery. And along the same lines with the paper, you want to use acid-free glue. And this is my go-to, used in bookbinding. It's the most wonderful paste, and yes, it is pH neutral. But this video, this tip, is these little wedges here, these little shims that I've made. So I'm thinking ahead when I'm going to put my paper over this, and this edge is going to get a nice decorative stamped edge paper. But these are so deep here. I don't know if you can see how deep those are set in. They're really quite deep. And when I go to glue on my paper, I don't just want to slather a bunch of glue in there. It just won't look good. Trust me. So I took some heavy card stock, and I just made these little wedges. And I actually have several different cardstocks that are different thicknesses. So I just picked one that was pretty much the same to fill in this gap. So now I'm just going to glue these over my screws for my hinges, and now I'll have a nice flat surface to glue my paper over. It's just the little tiny tidbits like that that will set your finishing above everyone else's. If you're spending, you know, we spend a lot of time on our embroidery. If you have something that you have spent months, years, I mean, my one casket, I was working on that for over 5 years, just the embroidery. You want to take just as much time and care in your finishing. You don't want to use and spend all that time and energy on your embroidery and then slap it on something in a day, you know, in the end, because it will show, and you want your things to last and to look nice. So little tips, little fine points of finishing are going to really set your projects apart from others. So that's all I have today. I think the next video we're going to get into gluing this box and gluing paper on the box. So what are you going to need for that? Like I said, this is my go-to for everything. Yes Paste. And then Yes Paste is, a lot of folks, they don't like it. It's too thick. Well, it's paste. That's why it's called Yes Paste. And what I use, you don't want to use a brush. It's just too thick. I use a palette knife. You can use a butter knife or whatever to dip it out of the jar, and you'll see it is really thick stuff. It's wonderful stuff. I'll dip it out of the jar with this. Then I will plop it onto my surface, and then I use just a plastic card spreader. You can buy Bondo spreaders in the automotive department, but they kind of have some sharp edges on them. These ones you just get in the mail, in the junk mail, and gee, junk mail is actually useful for something. So I save these that I get out of the junk mail, and I use them for spreading my glue. So let's see, those you'll need something to glue on. I like to put wax paper on my surface and have just a surface only for applying glue. And then you need your paper. So join me back next time, and we'll slap some paper on this bad boy and get it ready for some fun stuff. Thanks for watching.